Can you believe it was a love of shoes that made this hotel what it is? It's enough to make your head spin. A first look behind the scenes at the newly reopened Dookie Chase's restaurant. The Creole queen of cooking serving up the dish about dinner with the president.
Was it exciting? I couldn't believe it.
And how these trees signaled it was almost time to get off the boat, as if this weren't reason enough. Forever New Orleans TV starts now. Mark Twain once wrote that the Mississippi is not a commonplace river, but on the contrary, it is in all ways remarkable. It was here before our country was founded, and though a lot has changed since then, there's history that flows through these waters, blows through these trees, and lives quietly among this city. But as quiet as it can be just as exciting, if not more. Something about this place takes hold of you and pulls you in. The city's rich culture is intoxicating, and its charm makes you want to come back for more. But to fully understand New Orleans, you really need to step back in time. We start our journey at Oak Alley. There's so much history in this sugarcane plantation and so many stories. It's hard to know where to begin. The trees might just be the best place to start. Here's what we know about these historic oak trees. There are 2 rows of 14 each, set 80 feet apart, forming an alley that stretches a quarter mile to the mighty Mississippi. It became a landmark for travelers on the river.
When they would get to the Alley of Oaks, they would yell to everyone, "Look, it's the Alley of Oaks. We're almost in New Orleans."
The oak trees still stand tall and resilient, surviving hurricane after hurricane over the years, even Katrina. It's true, branches broke off during the storm, and the mansion's roof did have some damage.
But nothing compared to any other place. So we were so fortunate.
Today, the stars of the hour are these majestic oak trees. We don't know the name of the French settler who planted them, but thank goodness he did. We do know the story of Oak Alley, and it started with a devoted husband, Jacques Roman, who wanted nothing more than to please his wife, Celine. You gotta love that. Jacques knew Celine loved to entertain, so he built a mansion for her to do just that. One of my favorite stories here at Oak Alley is the story of the jar of pears. Now, back in the 1800s, it was considered rude for a lady to drink hard alcohol. So they would come back in here, the men would get the rum from the bottle, and the ladies would be able to eat the pears, which ironically had actually been soaking in the very same rum. Yummy! Celine's elaborate dinners were the talk of the town. The women brought their beaux, but the gentlemen knew they had to be on their best behavior. After all, the parents of the women monitored every move.
Now that parents could keep an eye on them with the federal bullseye mirror, like the one to my right. This convex mirror allowed them to view the entire room from out in the hallway.
One thing about Southern fashion back in the day is that they wore these wonderful hoop skirts, and there's a reason for that. The first layer is actually the dress itself. The second layer is the hoop skirt, which provided a lot of airflow on those hot Southern days. Now, one thing that actually counteracts that, the pantaloons, because men were not allowed to see ladies' ankles back then, unless he wanted to propose marriage. Back in time, there were many ways to protect a young woman's virtue.
Now, another way they kept their eyes on young couples in the 1800s was with a quarter candle, like this one.
When the candle burned to the top of the candle holder, it was time for her gentleman caller to say goodnight.
If the father thought the young gentleman was a good prospect for marriage, he made sure to set the candle high.
However, if he disapproved of the suitor, he set that candle low.
You could say this last gentleman got the short end of the stick.
I feel 2 things when I'm in this dress. First of all, I feel a little Scarlett O'Hara. Where's my mint julep? Secondly, I feel just a little bit insignificant. 300-year-old oaks will do that to you, make you feel small and make you want to tell the world all about this Louisiana treasure. Up next on Forever New Orleans, we take you to a hotel inspired by a shoemaker, along with a bar that seems to spin even before you drink. And you may need a drink to face the history that hides around here. Beware the scare when Forever New Orleans continues. From one National Historic Landmark to another, this one also just steps from the Mississippi River. It's the Hotel Monteleone, located in the heart of New Orleans' French Quarter. When you step into the Hotel Monteleone, you get a feast for the senses, and not just senses 1 through 5. Your sixth sense will sometimes kick in. We'll get to that in a bit, but first, did you know, back in time, famous writers loved this place? In fact, the Hotel Monteleone is designated as a literary landmark, one of only 3 hotels in the United States with such a distinction. Ernest Hemingway immortalized the hotel in his short story, Night Before Battle. Truman Capote was fond of telling interviewers he must have been born at the Hotel Monteleone. That's how much he adored the elegant rooms and first-class amenities. He can thank Antonio Monteleone. A shoemaker from Sicily, Monteleone had heard great things about America. So in 1880, he packed his bags and shoes, of course, moved here, and opened a cobbler shop on Royal Street. Antonio Monteleone then bought a hotel on the corner of Royal and Iberville so his clients would have a place to stay. His clients, who traveled from all over the country for Monteleone's shoes. So this here is the F.J. Monteleone Suite, part of a major expansion the hotel did back in the late 1920s. And being that it was named after a member of the family, it is the largest and perhaps most luxurious room in the hotel. How's this for luxury? The wet bar features a 24-karat gold-plated sink. Nothing but the finest in this suite. When Antonio Monteleone passed away, his son Frank added 200 more rooms in 1928. And when Frank died 30 years later, his son Bill added more floors, guest rooms, and a sky terrace with swimming pools. It's been said all the sights and sounds that make New Orleans unforgettable are at Hotel Monteleone's doorstep. Unforgettable is also a word to describe something else the Monteleone is known for. Dating back to 1886, spirits of the paranormal have revealed themselves. Yes, ghosts. Visitors have reported doors opening by themselves. Recently, the International Society of Paranormal Research investigated and actually made contact with a man named William Wildermuir, who had died inside the hotel of natural causes. Well, I guess it's true some people never leave the Hotel Monteleone. If you're looking for different kinds of spirits, check out the hotel's famous Carousel bar. It's like being on a carousel, all right. The bar revolves at a rate of 1 revolution every 15 minutes. But this isn't the only place that's said to have a haunted history. There's a place down the street that claims to have the best haunted history in town. But for me, a little too scary, so I'm gonna sit here with the boys. Marvin, serve me up, baby.
What would you like today?
History seems to seep out of every crack and crevice in this old city. And so does something else. There are certain places that might not feel right. You can't put your finger on it, but your heart will start to beat a bit faster. You start to shake. You break out into a cold sweat. You are in the most haunted city in America.
New Orleans has a long history of hauntings and death, and of course you do have to have a death before you can have a ghost.
And honestly, Sydney Smith is pretty happy about that, because ghosts and spirits, hobgoblins, the souls of the dead, well, they all help Sydney make a living.
Haunted History Tour people! Haunted History Tour people, come gather in close.
We take people to sites connected with real documented hauntings. These are real stories. We don't make this stuff up. This is not a Halloween spook house.
What it is the Haunted History Tour of New Orleans. No doubt there's a lot of mojo in New Orleans, good, bad, and downright frightening in this city.
When you take a picture and there's somebody there who's not supposed to be. that comes up, but it's on the rare side of the spectrum. What comes up far more frequently is people get orbs, and that's sort of a floating ball of light. So you guys can feel free to take whatever pictures you want, click away, but don't take too long because I'm heading in this direction.
The haunted tours are walking tours throughout the city, so you'll get a good physical workout, as well as getting your paranormal radar working.
We've had people on our tours over and over and over again who feel things, who see things, who experience things.
Sidney wouldn't tell us all his secrets, but he did tell us about this building where something has happened to so many visitors that can't be explained.
We've had over 100 faintings on our tour, which is not that strange considering this is New Orleans. People like to drink in the French Quarter. What is strange, though, these faintings are happening at the very same spot.
That's almost as scary as an audit from the Internal Revenue Service.
You see the Hotel Provincial just there? That used to be a hospital during the Civil War. Maids working there, they say that sometimes they go to make the beds, there'll be blood all over the sheets. A moment later, it's gone, and you know, they get uncomfortable, but the fact of the matter is that if you're maid in a hotel in the French Quarter, you're gonna see a lot.
Then there's this hotel. Looks just fine, you say, and maybe it is. But if you believe in spirits, some say this is a place that offers more than room service. Just ask one of the guests.
She met a gentleman on the balcony and engaged in some kind of an interesting conversation with him. She was intrigued. Later on, she went down and asked the gentleman at the front desk who was staying in that room. She was told nobody was staying in the room was empty, was not occupied. She said, bah humbug, I just had a long conversation with the gentleman. He said, no, you must have seen our ghost.
Naturally, she didn't believe him. However, a surprise awaited her when she returned home and developed the roll of film from her trip.
On the roll of film, a shot that her traveling companion had taken of her modeling a hat in her hotel room she had purchased in the French Quarter. She's standing in front of a mirror. Whose reflection do you think is coming back out of the mirror? The bearded gentleman that she met on the balcony.
This is the LaLaurie Mansion. And the story goes back to 1834 when it was the home of Louis and Delphine LaLaurie. A fire breaks out in the kitchen. Firemen come and they put out that fire and they find in the burnt out kitchen a slave woman chained by her ankle to the wall. And she tells those firemen in her very broken French that she set that fire on purpose. Because she said that she would rather burn up in the house trapped as she was than live in it knowing what was going on upstairs.
And what those firemen found on the second floor was so horrifying, you'll have to wait to go on the tour yourself to hear the gruesome details. Ahead on FNO TV, a ride along the Mississippi River with two unpredictable women. Wait, make that 3.
So how's everything going?
And cooking Creole style, a culinary legend, a hapless host, and a delicious dish when Forever New Orleans returns. You haven't experienced New Orleans until you step through the doors of this famous soul food restaurant, Dooky Chase. A few things you'll notice right away when you walk in. The aroma, delicious. The art, breathtaking. And the woman behind it all, remarkable. Leah Chase is a chef extraordinaire who's kind enough to dish up her secrets of Creole cooking. Frankly, it's intimidating to be in the presence of a culinary icon, especially when you learn whom she counts amongst her patrons.
Then I had the great privilege of serving the president the other night, and that was unbelievable. But that was good. It went well.
Exciting?
Yeah, was it exciting? I couldn't believe it. But it went well.
For starters, the president enjoyed a crab soup accompanied by a jumbo crab cake. The main course was a veal penne and sausage jambalaya. Today on the menu, Leah's signature chicken Creole.
At this age, I figure just eat it up, girl, while you're here and go.
Exactly.
The fact that I'm even standing here with Leah is a story in itself. You see, Katrina flooded her restaurant, damaged the roof, and nearly closed the doors of Dooky Chase for good.
On the bar side out there, we had 5.5 feet of water. The main dining rooms had 2 feet.
Leah managed to save her African-American art collection from damage, which, back in time, was known as the gallery for black artists in New Orleans. Dooky Chase opened its doors in 1941. The restaurant became one of the only gathering places for blacks. After Katrina, everything had to be ripped out because of the mold. Just like her delicious meals, Leah had to start from scratch. The New Orleans community came to her rescue, raising tens of thousands of dollars so she could rebuild. The one donation she appreciated the most?
A nun even sent me $5.
Aw, that's so sweet.
I thought that was great.
Confession time. I'm not much of a cook, but she promised she wouldn't tell anyone else.
Yeah, today we're gonna do chicken Creole.
Leah started by adding a little salt and white pepper to the chicken cutlets.
All you do is put it in the pot.
She then browns the chicken just enough to sear the juices in.
That is done enough so we can take it out.
Okay, so then you get a nice brown kind of coating there, still a little pink.
I like a lot of onions.
Leah sautés the onions until they're lightly browned and then adds chopped garlic, celery, and green and red bell peppers.
And is that a full green bell pepper?
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Things had been going so well, I thought I might have had her fooled. But then came a test.
Now here we're gonna put some thyme in there. You see the ground thyme?
The time? Is this the time? Which is the
Poor
time?
lady, she doesn't know
I
anything,
don't.
poor thing.
Oh well, maybe I could win back some points with something I do know about. Wine.
Let's do a little pinch of flour.
Okay.
We don't want too much flour in here. Now we're gonna add in our tomatoes. You know, Creoles like to cook sometimes with wine a lot, but I don't like it in here. I just like to do a little chicken broth.
Okay, scratch the wine. I guess I'll have to find another way to impress Leah.
So at this point, we can come back with our chicken. See,
All right.
We always put whole okra in it.
Okay, how many?
Give me all of them.
All of them. All right.
Here. Do you see what's happening?
Right.
It's fading. It's fading. So that's when you put your little paprika.
Paprika.
Hopefully, she didn't notice me fumble for the paprika.
Your paprika is not going to alter the taste. It's just going to give you a nice color.
A little fresh basil and parsley adds some nice contrast and flavor.
That's beautiful.
If it looks good, I say it's going to taste good. As the Creoles say, you let that mitonner down,
Okay.
and then you're going to serve it over some rice.
That sounds great.
Garnish it with a sprig of parsley, and you too may have a dish worthy of a president.
Ta-da!
There's music in the air. We'll show you how the sounds of this calliope were the advertisement for a trip along the water. The whole world knows about the mighty Mississippi, about its majestic beauty. But what people may not realize,
The whole reason New Orleans here is because of the Mississippi River. And at one time, it was the busiest port in the world.
it's still hoppin'. Big business, a rich history. There's nothing like it. Everybody in this city at one time or another is drawn to the banks of Old Man River. And when you get here, you'll hear the inviting sounds of the calliope, the kind they used more than 100 years ago. Back in time, this is how people knew the boat was ready to leave. This boy's ready for the sound to stop. The calliope sits on top of another piece of history. It's the pride of the Mississippi River, the pride of New Orleans, the Natchez.
The only thing different from this steamboat than the ones that ran 100 years ago is this one is made all of steel instead of wood, and we burn oil in the boilers instead of wood or coal.
It's the only paddle wheel steamboat left in New Orleans. There are only 5 in the U.S. This is one of those must-dos when visiting New Orleans, because not only do you get an up-close and personal look at one of the busiest waterways in the world, you get to do it in style. So here's a little tip. Nobody water skis behind a paddle wheeler. The Natchez won't break any speed records. It just sort of rolls along. I decided to check things out for myself, being the mechanical whiz that I am. Every day, several times a day, the two engines go to work providing power to turn the paddle wheel and keep the Natchez moving. The two engines have a name.
Thelma and Louise, because they got a mind of their own.
Nothing like the power of not one, but two women when you want to get things done.
It's not for killing the sexy teens.
You might say the lower Mississippi River is a temperamental one at times. You gotta know how to handle yourself to navigate this part of the Mississippi. That's why I felt it was my duty to take control of the old Natchez. Nothing to worry about here with Captain Carlson in charge.
So how's everything going?
Okay, I've been busted again. The only captain I ever learned from was Captain Crunch, so I know I'll never get soggy when wet. But for the man in charge of the Natchez, this isn't a job. It's a dream come true.
That's why people ride the steamboats.
A trip on the Natchez is like going back in time when the rolling, muddy waters spurred a young man to think about characters such as Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer. Who knows what you'll think about when you're on board the Natchez.
I'm queen of the world!
I'm Karen Carlson. We'll see you next time for another edition of Forever New Orleans TV.
One of the first things you'll notice is I have to sit back here. Apparently my large head is in the way. One of the first things you'll notice is the period at the end of my sentence. But that's okay, because you move fast enough to get a nice, cool breeze. Except for, of course, when you stop at the light. That's required by law, I think. Do you want to talk to me? Clearly the answer is no.